that's about all we can do in terms of fire regulation. So if there's a fire, scream a lot and run out. I find it hilarious that you put the guy with a German accent in the room T800. Thanks. Get to the chopper. So I want to talk today about HTML5 and what it means and how it actually works nowadays. I had a different talk planned, which I gave a preview of at the JWay office in Stockholm yesterday. But as I already uploaded those slides, I thought I'd do a different one. So the other one was full of codey things, which you can look up as well, and I have them online for you. But this one is more about an approach to HTML5 that we messed up immensely, and it's sad that we did. So I spent the last 3 years more or less talking about HTML5. I was there from the very beginning and was very okay, is it really the thing that we wanted to do? Is it really ready for it? I was one of those vocal people that said, if it works only in one browser, why bother? And I still am of that idea, and sadly enough, a lot of people are not. So a lot of mistakes of the past we repeat nowadays with new technologies. If I speak fast, I only have 40 minutes. Tough luck. The main thing about HTML5 was that we moved the web from documents to apps. We moved it from things with linked in blue text that you can actually click on and go to another document to something where you can do things. Or in other words, we moved from read things to do things. To me, an app is a do thing. If it doesn't do a thing, it's not an app. If it just shows your advertisement or it shows a thing that doesn't change, why is that an app? That to me should be a site, which of course makes every conference app useless, but I'm not going to say that. So if you can't do things with it, then don't do it. But what we had in HTML5 were new, exciting, and necessary features on the web stack, because the web couldn't do the things that other cool things like Flash and Silverlight and Java applets and whatever else people tried to put into the browser did. And those were some of the things that we had out of a sudden. We had natively supported video and audio. It wasn't that problem anymore to put a video in a page and put something on top of it. Remember when that was this one thing where you had a Flash thing and then you had to a hidden iframe to make it covered in Internet Explorer 6 and you just wanted to kill yourself or somebody in Redmond? We had painting and image manipulation with Canvas. So you can paint things in the browser and you can access images pixel by pixel. And I've done a lot of demos with that lately, that Canvas is not only for painting, but also doing things with. We had offline functionality, and that's super important. We have browser history handling. You know that one single page and then people hit the back button and you're gone and it goes back to the kitten page and everything you did before is lost. Not a good user experience. So we had to fix that with Flash, and then we fixed it with seeding an iframe again with documents and these kind of things, and now we have it in the browser. We need richer form controls like ranges, color pickers, autocomplete list boxes. And that is tricky when it has to be backwards compatible, which HTML5 has to be. And we had simpler DOM access. People use jQuery to access two things in the page because document get element by D is much longer than $. So we had to do something about that and make it easier to have proper DOM access and not on live nodes like get elements by tag name or get element by ID head, which is really annoying at times if you want to loop through them. Not the ID one, because if you use the ID more than once in a document, you're an evil, evil person. But the basics stay the same though. The cool thing about the web is that it's always the same. It's interoperable and independent of hardware and browser. You cannot tell users to change their hardware, much like you cannot tell users to not be blind. Yes, you can, but you will lose a lot of them, and a lot of them are working for government websites and basically are not allowed to install another browser. Or they are an operating system that is so outdated it doesn't need a new browser, doesn't want a new browser, or it's too slow for it. It's an open standards based, so it's a discussion in the open with HTML5, which of course makes it a bit a longer discussion than building something in your black box and saying ta-da, but it's actually in the long run better, because I remember when I had to do a document all and document layers, fork is the first thing in my JavaScript, and that was not fun. It's backwards compatible with the opportunity to reuse proven best practices. So what we've done the last 20 years on the web, or 15 years on the web, we can reuse. And an input type range falls back to an input type box where people can type in the number. And that's not a bad idea. And it's simple and forgiving. The parser fixes slight markup issues for you. If you don't close your p tag, the p tag will be closed for you. It's good because we don't punish our users for our mistakes. But for example, I like to close my p tags the same way I like to put a full stop at the end of a sentence. To me, it makes sense to write clean HTML and not rely on the parser doing it. But there's lots of code out there that is horrible that will never be fixed, so the parser had to be forgiving. So why is there still a fear of HTML5? Why do you see people still like using lots of divs and not one of the new elements? And why do people not do an input type telephone or something like that? Because on a mobile that's awesome, but on the desktop people don't use it much. I think the biggest problem is that we oversold HTML. HTML5 when it came out, we were like, oh, that's the future of the apps. Flash is dead. Everything will be going tomorrow and it will be great. Instead of giving you HTML, we gave you this 3D blinky HTML. So we showed you all these cool like flash animation type things in Canvas and like, oh, here's a cube with a video on each side because all of your clients in banks and finance institutions really want that. I've been in many meetings where they said like, yeah, your CRM system is good, but where's the rotating cube with the videos on the side? And then there was you need a modern browser. And that always cracks me up when people are like, oh, this only works in a modern browser. And modern browser is the most stupid thing you can write because IE6 was a modern browser, IE5 was a modern browser when I started because Netscape 3 was the first thing I used. And telling people to have one browser to use it basically means giving up on a standard. And the other one is, of course, a mobile thing. Like everything worked on mobile first because iPhone was really good at supporting HTML5. The input types and things was the first thing that really worked there, and offline storage as well. And then iPhone realized that selling apps is a different model, but it's fine. But that's why you get these websites. This was another day at a conference in Berlin, and this was the website on my desktop, basically in 1400 resolution. I got this thing that looked for iPhone 1, where like these were the buttons to activate things. This was not clickable. And you're like, really? This is what you think? Like, just because it's an HTML5 page, I have to have a mobile phone, and this is the best user experience for that resolution? No, it's flexible. Do something useful with that. And then, of course, we had all these articles that were going on that everything is broken and terrible. Like, there was a whole series of articles of HTML5 that started analyzing it across browsers and said, like, oh, it's broken, broken, broken. And that made all of you, and me as well, to not believe in it. Like, okay, if it's broken, why should I start using it in the beginning? And also, if the article is 7 years old, people still look at that thing and quote it to me and say, like, yeah, but it's broken, isn't it? You're like, you know, there's been 23 browsers in between that broken one and the not broken one now. Maybe look at what's going on right now. Just because it's broken in a browser nobody uses anymore doesn't mean it's not working. I love that, like making the city work together with like 3 cogs that intermesh and don't do anything. Because if you try to turn them, that's not going to work. It's not an official standard. That's normally the answer I get in Germany. Like, oh yeah, can I use it? No, it's not a standard. Oh, I can't use it then. Because people want to have a standard to work against because you got ISO 9000 certifications and these kind of things, and you get printouts that you did a standard. And that was a problem because people didn't trust. HTML4 was a standard. HTML5 was, we're still working on that. Browsers are doing things. W3 is doing things. What do we do now? And then we have the keeping ourselves clever and occupied cycle. That's something that I keep realizing right now a lot that's going on. Because HTML5 was not supported in all the browsers. And it will never be supported in older browsers. It will be supported insofar that it falls back to HTML4 and an input element will be a box. Cool. Works enough for Internet Explorer 6. Don't give it a slider that might not work or you have to test a lot on it. But what do we do when something is not supported across all the browsers? We have issues with it. The first thing we did is like, there are old browsers out there that cannot do all of that. Mobile operating systems are not good at upgrading their browsers. That was a big problem. Android with their stock browser, or bane of my existence as I used to call it, that was the new Internet Explorer to me. Like, if the thing is hardwired to the operating system and the operating system doesn't get updated, that's a big problem. And don't get me started on web views because that's the even more problematic thing because you can't even debug it properly because it's not a full browser and you don't know what engine is running in there. And experimental implementations differ from browser to browser and environment to environment. You remember all these WebKit things and MOS things and MS things and O things? We have like CSS all over the place with those things in there. The amount of white buttons with white background, because the background is only a WebKit gradient, is just amazing out there, and it's not really helpful. And native is always faster was, of course, the other big thing as well. Like, well, if I write it natively, then it's much faster than HTML5. Much like a Formula 1 car is much faster than my car in the city, but shopping with it at ICA is a really big problem. These are built for one thing, and when they're built for one thing only, of course, they're going to be better, not an issue. And then we built libraries, polyfills, and frameworks, and we relied on those. We didn't even look at the standard anymore. We just basically said, like, okay, use Bootstrap and all your buttons look right. Use jQuery UI, and it works on all the mobile devices out there for this month. And then you actually have to do another one next month. And we had all these libraries, polyfills, and frameworks. And the more we put into them, the fatter we made HTML5, and the slower we made HTML5, which made the tech press, of course, say HTML5 is slow. Well, yeah, if you rely on 12 different abstractions, it's not a wonder. And we have a website obesity problem. Like the average website, and this is from a month ago, is 1,944 kilobytes. And it actually uses about 100 different HTTP requests. After we told in performance talks for about 5 years now that every HTTP request is a bad idea. Favorite example, the new LG watch, 53 megabyte of images on the first load. I couldn't load it on the 100 megabit we have in Stockholm. I'm still waiting for this to load in another computer back home. But it's probably beautiful. So how do we fix that? How do we fix the problem of polyfills and these things being so big, and we still need them because the browsers we wanted to support? So what we do, of course, we build other tools to undo what the polyfills have done before. This was a great tweet the other day, like how to build a website in 2014, install Node, install Bower, pick a CSS framework, pick responsive approach, and at 47 write some HTML. The amount of people that tell me you need to know the command line in Unix to write CSS just drives me crazy. Yeah, I know Unix, I wrote Perl. You want to read my old stuff that is unreadable? Yay. We use abstractions to fix issues in the plumbing of the web and then add more abstractions to undo them, which is hilarious, but it keeps us busy and it keeps us clever because we actually show off to each other that our thing that takes the CSS out that you put in there has like 50K less than the other one. UnCSS is a great tool. It's really, really amazing that it surfs through your page in Phantom.js and finds out which CSS is not used and takes that out. The issue, of course, is that Phantom.js is based on WebKit running, so all the styles you put in for Internet Explorer will be taken out as well. So all these tools are super clever and super intelligent, and I think this is how we lose touch with the core idea of the web and its main feature that made it the success that it is now. And that is that it's a super low learning curve. I love teaching children to start building websites. I love building with journalists, with people who don't want to be programmers, but they should be allowed to publish something on the web. And we made web development this black art of like 10,000 abstractions now because we have a performance issue that we realized we really don't fix because people get a content management system and put 6,000 images in our solution where we shaved off 50K of the JavaScript with like 12 different abstractions. So is it time to ditch the abstractions? Is it time to get closer to the metal and actually use HTML5 again? And of course you have to go closer to the metal because this is sweet. You know, you gotta be yourself, no matter what you do. HTML5 is now W3C official. You can go to banks, you can go to insurance companies, and you can say, I can use HTML5 now. It's signed off, it's a standard, it's a living standard, but it's also a fixed standard, and that is awesome. And I think it's just important because it shows that it matured enough that the W3C, which has much more stringent rules than others, say it's okay now, use it. And exciting things happen in mobile as well. Safari for iOS has a massively improved HTML5 support. Of course, there was a big article saying like Safari is now HTML5's best friend, and there were 12 articles, no, it's not its best friend. I don't care if they're best friends as long as they talk to each other, that's okay. You know, and Android has an evergreen web view, and that's really, really cool. Because now the web view updates when Android doesn't update. So you don't have to wait for Telia, Samara, or whatever provider that you have to give you the new Android, but Android gets updated from the Play Store. And that's even on the Android One device that is targeted for India and Africa. So that's really cool as well. There was a talk at the JWay meetup as well, where there's a product called Crosslink, something like that, that allows you to inject another one older Androids as well, and that's a very good way to solve that problem. But now it's evergreen on Android L, so as soon as we have Android L, everything will be cool. And Firefox OS covers most of South America and now available in Bangladesh and India. And that is a new thing to think about. These are the next billion people that go online, that for the first time go online with a mobile device because they will never have a desktop computer. The desktop computers that we have, is most people don't use them anymore to go online for the first time. So what's the state of play? Plugin-less video and audio, all over the shop. Works perfectly wherever you want to do it. And now with H.264 being open, thanks to Cisco, we also have it in Firefox on desktop, so we don't have the problem with like encode everything 6 times. But you can still do that because WebM is sometimes much, much smaller. Opera Mini is the only one that doesn't do it because it streams an HTML file down to your computer. It's actually a cloud browser rather than like a real browser on the device. Basic drawing and pixel manipulation in Canvas, perfect across the board as well. 3D drawing using WebGL, all over the shop. But this is also because OpenGL is a massive standard and its WebGL doesn't support all of it. And this is actually, when I showed it the first time, the Android people were complaining that this is not true anymore, so there's a UX issue in that website as well. But WebGL is a superbly interesting thing. The best thing I think about WebGL for me was that we have indexed arrays now, so that you can write JavaScript that gets hardware accelerated even without using WebGL, so that's pretty cool as well, if you want to do like a worker or something. Offline apps caching resources in app cache. It works, it's quirky, it has lots of problems with it, but it still shouldn't stop you from having a static page that is loaded in the browser. Every byte that you can save the user is a good byte. Offline apps storing resources in web storage, like local storage and session storage. Works as well. Don't put too many things in there because it's still synchronous. So when the page loads, it waits until it loaded everything there, but it's there. It's super easy to use. It's just a key value pair and like window local storage blah equals something and you're done. And this works across all of them. Again, not Opera Mini because it's not really a live browser. Offline apps with larger resources where you need a real database, where you have IndexedDB and WebSQL because companies do different things and go together. So if you want to have the support, you should put them together. And then you see the support across all devices. Of course, the good thing here is to use an abstraction library. And browser history management is super easy as well across all the browsers. 8.9 IE has a problem with it, but we'll see what you can do there. Simpler DOM access, jQuery query selector, and class list. Class list I love because that is normally when I hire JavaScript engineers, that's the question I ask them to write me a function to add, remove, toggle, and check for classes on every element. And now they can just say document class list. Got to think about a new thing when I hire people. Play, modify, and create audio with web audio, because weirdly enough, the video tag was well supported. Audio tag has lots of clipping issues and like looping issues, but with web audio, I've got full control over the audio. I can create audio, I can change the speed, I can even make it in a 3D space where I can walk around and hear different things, which is great for gaming. And this one is now supported, not in IE, not in Android, but in all the others as well. Android is getting there as well, because now that it's Chrome in the latest, it's going to be fine. IE, don't know what's going on there. But things move fast. And this is in London. By the time you move, you've read this, the Earth will have spun you 1,450 meters. You don't feel it normally, but it would be quite fast if it did. And I think this is how the web moves as well. So be up to date and think about what's going on there. And this is solve real issues with the technologies in browsers. Stop worrying about the support right now. Browsers update every 6 weeks. People actually have browsers that do make sense, and sooner or later we will have to get rid of IE6. Even Microsoft says so. It's not a browser, it's a security hole. It really is an issue. And I think the more we can convince people that it's beneficial to have a drag and drop to upload rather than go to a file system in IE6, it's a good thing to show people. Keep up to date with what's supported and use it. caniuse.com is where I got all these graphs from. Great website. Just type it in there and you say, oh, that's working. Great. Of course, test it. And this is the big thing to me. Stop asking what if. What if browsers had query selector? What if browsers had match media? And think about going into if what. If you code this way, you never have a problem. You want to try something? Put in an if statement, then use it. If the browser doesn't support it, it's never going to be used. That's as simple as it is. Non-support is a good thing at times. Like, for example, media queries in CSS. Internet Explorer, old Internet Explorer doesn't support that. So wrap your whole CSS in one media query. That means just media query only. That don't even have to do anything. And the CSS will never get applied. That's great. You don't have to worry about testing on those browsers if something bleeds through or something like that. HTML5 is not experimental features of browsers becoming a maintenance problem. So if something has a browser prefix, use it wisely, but don't use it in production. As harsh as that sounds, but we are putting so much code on the web that is broken in half a year, it's a really bad idea. It's good for testing things out. Do it in your testing suite, doing in your dev environment. But for live, I'm tired of seeing these white buttons with white background because somebody thought WebKit will not ever change their gradient background syntax. It's not Flash. There's no need to wait for one company to give an update. Like HTML5 gets pushed by many, many companies, by Google, by Microsoft, by Apple, by Samsung, by Mozilla, of course. All the people out there are working together on it, so you're not on the beck and call of one company. And it's not limited by buggy implementations of browsers. If we encounter them, let's report them. Please, please tell browser makers what's broken. We don't know everything, and we love bugs. We just basically love to fix them. The more we fix, the happier we are. There's still some real issues we have yet to solve. You saw it in the keynote. I love this movie, actually, Her. The future will not be flying cars. The future will still be grimy. There will be still connection problems. There will be still update problems. Copper wire in the ground is not fun. And the world is big, and connectivity is really hard to do. Physics is against us when it comes to connectivity. And I see that when I'm on trains, when I'm on the bicycle, when I'm in badly connected countries like America compared to Sweden. And the World Wide Web-ish is this. These are the connected devices on the web. And there is a lot of black there. And I don't like that. I wish that all would light up, because everybody should have the right to publish. Everybody should have the chance to learn things from the web. But we don't do it yet because make everything like connected, like 23 meg to download. We also have homegrown concerns. Like people at home are also getting tired of having everything offline, online. Why does my computer send data in the background that I don't know about? Why is this one process running? Why, when I upgrade Word, I have to restart all my browsers? That's what I never understand. And of course, can we trust what we don't know? It goes to the cloud. Everything is safe. Nobody looks at that. It's just yours because you pay like $5 for the whole year. That means nobody will ever look at your data because you obviously read the terms and conditions. So there's a need for an offline web, but we condition people not to believe in it. I built a lot of stuff that works completely offline in the browser, and every time I show it to people, they're like, yeah, but I'm not online. You're like, you don't have to be. I made it work offline with app cache and with local storage, but people just don't understand that the web can be offline yet. The current tools are okay-ish. As I said, there's a few problems with app cache, a few problems with local storage, but there's things like LocalForage, for example, is an abstraction API, which is like, okay, now I talk about abstractions after demonizing them earlier, but this one is one that really, really works simply, like all the others do. So we need to use them well, so that people start trusting the web to be offline capable and theirs to own. I think the trust thing about the web being people's data is a very important thing, because we trust people in the unknown far too often. I replace the cloud when I talk about it now with somebody else's computer. And that makes people think about it much better. Like, yeah, so your photos are on somebody else's computer, which might be a thing in the corner fizzing away and with like a few cables coming out. Because we don't know what the cloud server are. Where are they? What's going on? I once been in an ISP in Los Angeles and they showed me their facilities. And I'm like, so where's your backup facility? Oh, it's the building over there. So it's on the same power grid? Oh yeah, let me look into that. So don't trust too many things. But the cool thing is that if you look at these things and you think about offline, you find speed as amazing. This is a LocalForage versus XHR experiment. An Ajax load was on average 787 milliseconds. Reading from IndexedDB was 25 milliseconds. The same data. The data didn't change, so why didn't they store it in IndexedDB? That's a very, very good idea to give as much to the user from their computer or from their mobile phones. These things have a lot of memory in them. Let's use it. I'm not alone in this. Alex Feierke gave a great talk about how offline first is important and how offline happens. There's great solutions in the making. Service Worker is with Mozilla and Google. And there's two good talks by Jake Archibald here. There's a 15-minute introduction, what it means to Service Worker, and then a live demo talk from JSConf this year where he shows how to implement it. Service Worker, in essence, is a full router in JavaScript. So you don't only can cache things, but you have different caches. You can react to different HTTP requests. You can react to different types of data being asked for. So you have a full control layer before the page even loads. And that's a very, very important step that we need to fix. Of course, componentized web is a big thing as well, web components and everything. And this was this great article there the other day that looked at the state of the componentized web. And it's a very simple overview of a few things that are happening there, and a few more things, and a few more things. He uses Ember, React, or he uses Polymer, or then the W3C standards, how much they're supported, or another framework, or another framework. So the web components are basically, it looks a bit familiar, doesn't it? Same thing that we did with HTML5 right now. We put lots of Polymer and, well, I mean, Polymer is great. I'm not saying these things are bad, but we put lots of abstraction layers in rather than fixing the real thing and using the real thing because we want to use it far too early in the process. Please, please experiment and innovate with browsers. Don't just expect things to work and put something in between so we never have a chance to fix it in the browser itself. There will be no magic SDK, IDE, or framework or product to fix all of our problems, and that's a spoiler. Instead, try to shave things something. Try to make your things faster. Think about offline. Just use local storage for a few things that you haven't thought of before, and learn about your tools. Developer tools in all browsers are full of exciting new features. I can do so many things nowadays. I can do live audio editing, live canvas editing, WebGL editing. I see my local storage now as a real storage and not just like as a JSON blob that I have to calculate the size of it that I did before. I have live editing of Bezier curves and animations. I've got color pickers in my CSS. I'm more or less fine writing full websites in the browser tools nowadays because it's in there. And that again is for the worldwide thing really cool because if people download their browser, they already have the editor in it. Why not? If they download the browser and then get asked to download a 4 gig SDK, not so much fun. We need to fix the platform, and for now this is browsers, and it will be the browsers for a long, long time to come. There will not be a native platform that replaces the web. And give feedback where it gets listened to. File bugs. Don't go on Twitter and say like, oh, Chrome is crap, or Firefox is crap, or don't complain to me about a problem that you have in the browser that I have to play telephone with engineers then to fix for you. The only thing that engineers in browsers look in is bugs. That's what they have to do every day. So file them there and then things will move again as well. And that's all I had, so thanks very much.